Hello, this is Mark Wiltshire. I'd like to thank you for choosing to listen to the Explore Finland radio show. I appreciate you joining me for what is the first episode of the show. And I hope this is going to be a really exciting journey. I'm genuinely going to be learning as we go through this through the series. I've realised I've got a lot to learn about Finland. I've got a long list of subjects that I want to discover more about, and I'm going to learn, and I hope that you will learn with me. Today I'm really happy to be joined by Mari Dawe. She's going to take me into the woods and teach me all about how to locate and pick mushrooms and what we can do with it. So Mari, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for asking. Thanks for inviting me, Mark.
So we're just sitting here now talking before we go into the forest foraging for mushrooms. Mari, how did you get involved in this living off the forest?
It is really difficult to say how I got started. It's just something that we've always done. It's lots of families in Finland do it. Well, they just do it. We pick berries, we pick mushrooms, we take supplies for decorating the house. You just name it. It's just what we do.
Do you have early memories of going out with your family, with your parents?
Oh yes, and especially with my father, who was a student when I was little. So I always went out with he made a rucksack where I could come to the forest with him and his classmates, and we picked mushrooms, berries. So anyway, the forest is just it's like going treasure hunting basically, and it's quite exciting to enter the forest as when you have an idea that you're going to pick something. So the search is one thing, finding is another.
So I hope that we get lucky today. Let's see. I know that you don't actually know the area of woods very well that we're going into, so it is a bit of a potluck. But let's see how we get on. One thing that will be unusual for many people listening, and it was unusual for me when I learned about it, is this idea that you can just go into the woods picking. I've learned this phrase, everyman's rights. What is that in Finnish, and what is allowed, basically, under everyman's rights?
So in Finnish, that would be called jokamiehen oikeus, and it means that everybody can go into the forest, into the fields, anywhere basically, unless they can't harm anything. Do not cause any harm. That is the rule. But you can pick berries, you can pick mushrooms, you can't pick lichen. Okay. Because that is harming the forest, and you can't break branches or take furs.
Yes, okay.
But you can pick mushrooms and berries. You can before you were allowed to fish anywhere, but you can't do that anymore. You have to have a license for that. But
you have to have a license to fish, but once you have the license, pretty much everywhere is open to you, which again is, for me, coming from the UK, that's unusual. In the UK, the land is owned by someone, and that landowner can stop you from going on their land and fishing and hunting and things like that. But that's definitely not the case here, even if the land is owned by somebody.
The land is always owned by somebody, but in Finland, a lot of the forest areas are owned by the Republic of Finland.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's also something that's one thing that makes it easier to enter the forest. But if it was my forest, I could not ban other people coming there. They can't, with this whole picking issue, they cannot go to somebody's garden. If somebody's got a very foresty garden or summer cottage, you're not allowed to go next to the house, or it's not considered good manners.
So if somebody's got vegetables growing in their garden, it's not every man's rights to go and help yourself to their carrots.
Indeed, it's not.
Yeah.
And also you have to understand that it's a very, very deep Finnish value to leave other people alone. So it's not really an issue that people would even want to go and pick berries in somebody else's back garden.
When you're in the woods looking for mushrooms, what are you looking for to help you locate the right areas to find the mushrooms?
Well, it's usually moss. That is a good sign. If there is lots of moss, lovely green lush moss, then you should be quite close. So if it's the right time of year, if it's been damp enough, warm enough, or whatever the mushrooms need, and it's mossy, you're likely to find some.
Is it a different type of terrain depending on the time of year?
I wouldn't say so. I still would go for moss after rain.
We're sitting here now, it's towards the end of October. We're looking for a particular type of mushroom when we go into the woods. But what about other times of the year, earlier in the summer, for example?
The first mushrooms you can usually pick in, I would say, May.
Okay.
I never do that because it is a very strange looking mushroom. It looks like a bunch of ears basically put together. It looks very strange, and it is slightly poisonous. You need to boil it in water 3 times to make it edible. Yes, and it is delicious. It is really good, but I don't have courage to to pick it and handle it myself.
No, I think anything that's slightly poisonous is probably best to leave.
Yeah, exactly. And then the first ones that I would pick would come out in end of June, and that's chanterelles, and they can be very, very early. At our summer cottage, they grow on it's just a bare path basically. It's with clay. And you would never expect anything to come out from that dry soil, but they just do. And
so that's not so mossy.
That's not so mossy.
Okay.
There is moss on the sides, but they also come up from the middle, which is very, very strange.
Yeah, I notice in my garden at certain times of the year, in the middle of the lawn, certain mushrooms come up. I've never considered eating them.
Well, and you shouldn't before you find out what they are. Yeah, but chanterelles, definitely the first ones. After that, I don't have the names in English. Sorry, Mark, I should have checked. But
in Finnish, we can add the translations into the show notes afterwards, and people can find them online. So.
All right. Well, I would say July is quite. It's not the best month for mushrooms in Finland, although porcini might start coming up end of July. Definitely August is good for porcini, and that's that family of mushrooms. In September, I would go hunting for orakas, which is a delicious mushroom. Also lampaankääpä, which is sort of like called the sheep's mushroom. It's white and big and very, very good, very tasty. And then finally in the end of can't even say summer, in the autumn there would come this suppilavahvero, which we're going to go hunt today.
Okay. You mentioned before about not eating what grows through my lawn until I know what they are. How did you learn to identify them? Do you have a particular book or resource that you refer to, or?
No, I don't have a book or any other resource because I feel safer when I pick mushrooms that somebody showed me.
Okay.
And I've known. I would say that I recognize about 15 edible mushrooms, and I know them all because my family's been picking them. So it's sort of like this very old-fashioned way of transferring information, parent to child, and it's been I do know that there are good books that kind of show you the path. That's how you start figuring out what you're dealing with. But I feel safer through somebody showing me.
Yeah, and I think if I had a book as well, I mean, I feel safer that I've got you showing me today. That gives me some reassurance, and if it's come from generations of your family passing this information down, that feels good to me. I wouldn't actually trust myself to be reading a book and is that exactly what I'm looking at here? And as I say, it's a fine line for me. Or I guess it's a fine line between something edible and something deadly, and I'm not prepared to walk that tightrope on my own.
Yes, and quite seriously, I don't think you should, because some mushrooms contain poisons that just knock you out, and they just don't knock you out; they kill you.
Yeah.
So it's better to be quite cautious.
Okay, so we'll put that as a disclaimer here and now on the Explore Finland radio show. Don't pick and eat mushrooms unless you really know what you're doing. And we're going out today to find a very specific type of mushroom that Mari has been picking and eating for years. So we're going to keep safe and keep to something that we really understand. Okay, so we're now in the woods, and I have no idea what to look for. So Mari, what kind of woodland area are we looking for the mushrooms?
Well, this is a bit marshy, so we would be looking for a terrain with moss.
Okay.
I would say pines and spruces. I suppose in England you refer to them as Christmas trees.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking for a Christmas tree forest, and
yes, and not too. I mean, for mushrooms, of course, they need water, but it doesn't. If it's too wet, then the plants that are on the ground tend to be a bit different.
Yeah.
So we basically need green moss and some fir trees.
Fine. Okay. So I guess we're here now. We're just about to start hunting. Which way should we go?
I think if we head towards that bit there with a lot of lichen, that might be all right.
Okay, let's head that way then. Let's
all
go.
right, great.
So we've just come slightly further into the forest, like Mari suggested. I can't see anything, but do you get the feeling we're on the right track?
I don't think this is quite it. You can definitely smell mushrooms, but there are some. If you can see, there's an old one there.
Yes. Okay.
There were some old ones back there.
It's kind of, now you say it, it's kind of that smell when you when you buy mushrooms from the shop and you take the lid off, you do get that.
Yeah, there is a mushroom,
kind of smell.
definitely a mushroomy smell. But these that are back there, they are fantastic for making pickles and everything, but they're old.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you.
Can't pick them now, but they are just, they're beautiful.
I posted something on my website a couple of weeks ago about the mushrooms that had sprung up in the forest near my home, seemingly overnight. I guess they'd been coming and I just hadn't noticed. But I haven't got a clue which ones are edible. But next time I notice this, I'll be on the phone and we can go and see what you can identify.
Yeah, I only pick those I know.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And same here, but I don't know any, so I don't pick any. But they look amazing. I like eating mushrooms, but I think brought up in suburban London, we were just taught not to pick mushrooms, so
I would definitely not eat a mushroom that's grown in suburban London.
No, I don't know if there are any that grow in suburban London. That's the thing. I never saw any wild ones.
And Mark, the mushrooms take all the pollution, so they are sponges basically.
Okay.
Do you know original sponges were mushrooms? So some kind of mushroom. So when you say that something takes things in like a sponge, well, mushrooms actually they really do that.
So if you're in a city area and you do find mushrooms, they're just soaking up all the rubbish that's in the air, all the pollution in the air. Here, the air is clean and beautiful, so these things are hopefully sucking in healthy.
Yeah, and mushrooms are healthy. That's many people don't actually realise it. They keep hunger at bay as well as red meat. Okay. And they've got good proteins in an excellent form. So anything, your body can use the protein really well. Also vitamin D, lots of things. So
yeah, I heard recently people saying that protein is a good way to start the day. There seems to be a movement of people that prefer some kind of protein in the morning, and knowing that mushrooms offers something similar. So it kind of feels a bit more healthy than having a steak sandwich for breakfast.
Yeah. I mean, you can debate whether steak is healthy or not.
Well, no, that's true.
But I think steak, in my opinion, it is healthy, but there are many opinions about
I guess living with a vegetarian, you have this debate quite regularly at home.
Yeah. I'm allowed to eat organic meat.
Okay.
That's our compromise on this issue.
That's
which is good.
Let's go and see if we can find the actual target that we're looking for here.
Okay, let's head that way then. Hey, look, over here, we've got some chanterelles.
Okay, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
We've been in here for about 5 minutes, and you found something. That's a good start.
And chanterelles, these are, I think, in Finland, regarded as probably, well, definitely one of the best mushrooms to eat. It's extremely easy to recognize. It's all yellow, and it's kind of what would you call this structure? Veiny.
Yeah. Do you know what I don't know what the underside of a mushroom is called, but you're right. The whole thing is one colour, whereas some mushrooms you find are like a white colour with brown underneath. These are
and like all yellow,
all over.
Yeah, and so the underside of the mushroom is really important for recognizing a mushroom.
Okay.
Because if it's got sort of like little like a spongy layer of little holes, then you know that it's porcini or some of that's lot.
Okay.
And all of those are edible. I think there's one in that family that's not. So they're really, really safe to pick. And the one that's not edible, it just tastes bad.
Okay.
It's not poisonous.
Yeah. Okay.
We found four chanterelles. I mean, this is not a big. They're quite small, as they are. It's really strange to see them this time of year, because these are the first summer mushrooms. Often, we pick these at the summer cottage. We probably get the first lot in end of June.
And you were saying that there are some old ones that are sort of rotted away here. So these are the late bloomers.
Yeah,
from this group.
Definitely. And there's been a frost, so this mushroom, I've never seen it after frost before. So this must be a place with a microclimate that doesn't really get cold. But yeah, you can see plenty of these old ones here, and we're going to leave. There are 4 more, and I'm going to pick this little one. But the rest we're going to leave because they've got this black stuff on their caps, and it's better to leave them and let them be, food for next year's.
Let the forest feed itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Good stuff. Let's move on and see what we find.
All right. Look, who do we have here?
Okay.
So this is exactly what we came to the forest for. I was starting to get a bit desperate, actually.
Okay.
But hey, and you know what? This mushroom, suppilovahvero, is something that's it's hard to spot, but when you see one, then you see about 1,000.
And you just spotted them, and as you yelped, I looked down at my feet, and I was just about to tread on some. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So this is really tiny. This can be, of course, due to how old they are. They can be. This is about the length of my little finger. The cap is about the size of my thumbnail.
Yeah.
So we're talking about tiny. The hat is light brown.
Yes.
The leg is yellow, and the it is a bit veiny under the cap.
Almost looks a bit rubbery, whereas some look a bit velvety.
Yeah. And the lovely thing about these mushrooms is that they are so clean. They don't have any. You can't find a slug inside one.
Yes.
which is really nice. You don't.
Is
really...
that an occupational hazard for the mushroom collector?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a knife with me. It doesn't have a brush because
Is that some kind of special knife?
No.
You just got a cover on it.
This is just a kitchen knife. But the real mushroom knife has got a brush in the other end, and mine is at the summer cottage at the moment. So I brought just to have something. But with suppilovahvero, you can basically just pick them. And look here, Mark. There are so many.
And they just kind of come out of the ground without any real effort.
Yeah.
And they're all clustered together. In little groups.
Yeah.
So I guess it's time for me to take my gloves off.
Yeah.
Put my mic down
is.
and get stuck in.
Oh yeah. And anywhere I look now, I can see them. So I think we will have a full bucket in about half an hour.
We've struck gold. Okay, let me switch this off and get busy.
All right. Good.
Right. So after a good half an hour or more crawling around the forest floor on our hands and knees, we've finished for today. We've got a large bucket here that's more than half full with mushrooms, and I'm delighted. Mari, what do you think? How did we do?
I think we did well in the time that we were in the forest. I think we did really well.
Yeah, I'm pleased. I'm quite looking forward to getting these home and seeing what we can make of it. But once you've got the mushrooms back home, what do you do with them? What do you need to do to prepare these mushrooms particularly, and then in general, and for storage and keeping them?
For these mushrooms in particular, I like them dried. And that's because they are so thin. The flesh is so thin that they dry in, I would say, maybe 3-4 hours. And they are very, they're easy to store. They don't need much space. You just take a brown, a paper bag and stick them in and put them on the shelf. And they're ready to use, and they're ready to go whenever.
When you've dried them, does that restrict how you can use them again next time? Like, for example, I've got in mind a mushroom omelette or something from these. But once you've dried them, can you use them in that same way?
Yes, you can. But you have to take some time to let them soak in water. So, but then I use dried mushrooms for risottos very, very often. Probably weekly.
Okay.
So then I just stick them in water for about 10 minutes.
So you rehydrate them after you've dried them out? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
You can do blueberries the same way, by the way. You can dry. Yeah, that's time before freezers. What people used to do, they dried blueberries and then they stick them in water.
I've got some pictures on the website of earlier, or actually the end of summer. I went into the woods near where I live with Evie, my daughter, and we picked puolukka, which are lingonberries. Now you've given me an idea that maybe we should meet up again sometime next summer and go looking for blueberries.
Oh, indeed. That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay. So you dry them at home? I
dry them at home. I have a dryer, but if you don't have one, you can just as well use an oven. And if you have a sauna, you can use a sauna. In England, I think that might not be the case, but in Finland you do.
Yeah, in Finland, people are just as likely to have a sauna in their home as they are an oven, i.e. pretty much everybody has
that is correct.
If you're drying them in the oven, what do you do? Turn the oven on and then off and just put them in a warm oven, or?
No, they need a longer time. So if I do them in the oven, it's probably 50 degrees Celsius.
So quite low heat.
The lowest heat your oven can do, and then you leave them in for several hours.
Right.
But with the oven, the problem is that it should be ventilated. So once in a while you need to have the hatch open. But so a dryer is really, really easy and very convenient. If you dry herbs, seeds, anything basically, then the dryer is a good buy.
So you mentioned just now that your favourite recipe is the mushroom risotto. What else do you make?
I don't know if I would call it my favourite recipe, but it definitely is one that we are eating in our house quite often. My husband is vegetarian, so we need lots of recipes that are, well, good for everybody. Let's put it that way. And I've got this one fantastic recipe for mushroom risotto, and that is just the easiest thing to do. Just throw everything together and always good.
And that's, as you said, you just rehydrate the mushrooms a little beforehand, and then they're ready to go.
They're ready to go, and the water that you put them in, it makes a beautiful sort of, you don't need stock, basically.
Yeah, okay.
So you don't need to add any artificial stocks. You just use the water from mushrooms, and that takes care of it. Another way of preparing mushrooms for the winter would be frying them in a frying pan. And the thing is that you don't use any butter, any oil, nothing. You just put the mushrooms as they are on have to chop them first, obviously, but then you just put them on a very, very hot, dry frying pan, and you let them be there as long as soon when they touch the pan, they start sizzling quite soon, and there is a lot of water that evaporates, and once you've done that, you can just stick them in little bags and freeze them.
So it's a hot, dry pan, and the idea is to use that to remove the
water.
moisture.
Yeah.
does that preserve them in a different way to drying them, or when you're ready to use them again, do you have to rehydrate them like you...
You don't need to rehydrate them, but you need to defrost them.
Of course. Well, yeah, if you're putting them in the freezer, I guess that makes sense.
But this is one of the reasons why I prefer the dried mushrooms, is that they are so quick to use. I mean, defrosting a bag of mushrooms can easily take hour, 2 hours, and just putting moisture back in dried mushrooms takes 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay, good tip. Good tip, thanks. I've actually been thinking that we've got a better crop here than I could have dreamed for. So this has been a great experience for me, and I'm going to take a share of this. The lion's share is going to Mari and Julian because she has to feed that vegetarian husband of hers. But I'm going to take my share home, and I've got in mind a mushroom quiche.
Oh, beautiful! That's fantastic.
I've not made one before, so I'm probably gonna rely on my friend Jamie Oliver and his online cookery book for some tips. But that's what I've got planned. So we'll see how that comes out and I'll put a picture of that on the website afterwards, so we can see the whole process from locating them, picking them, and
preparing them for food.
For food, which is the whole point of it. Yeah.
So risottos, quiches, sauces. There's a strange thing we call the mushroom salad, which basically is mushrooms that have been in vinegar, chopped and mixed with whipping cream.
You mentioned pickled mushrooms when we were in the woods. Is this what you're referring to now when you say vinegar?
Yes, I am. And that is another thing that is made really easy these days. You can go to the shop and buy a sachet that contains a preserved, it's a powder that you mix with water, and that's all you need.
For pickling?
Yeah, for pickling mushrooms.
So almost like a dehydrated vinegar or something like that to allow you to pickle them.
Yeah, something like that. And they are delicious. They're really good. So, and you can do that with different kinds of mushrooms. I would like to go back to this drying issue. Yeah. Drying is good for mushrooms that are quite light, thin structure. But,
such as the supalova.
Yeah, such as these mushrooms. But I would use the frying pan for mushrooms with thicker flesh.
Okay.
Because
why is that?
It just takes ages to dry. They are okay. Will turn out fine if you try to dry them, but it just takes ages.
Because they're so thick, they're holding on to so much moisture. Okay. Yeah. Good. Another good tip. I knew that's what I would get when I spoke to you today. So that's good news. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much everything for today. One final time, Mari, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking me out with your family. They're somewhere around here in the woods with us. So thank you for that.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun. And next year, I think we'll go berry picking.
That sounds like a plan, and I'd now just like to say, if you enjoyed the show and you want to show your support, then please take a minute, head over to iTunes to rate or review the show. That will help me move up the ratings and find a bigger audience. Remember, you can subscribe to my mailing list on my website, and I will be putting show notes up for each show, and if you want me to email those to you when each new show is available, then it will give you something to refer to while you're listening or after you've listened, or provide a reminder that the new show is available. And of course, you can subscribe to the show when you're on iTunes and you're rating and reviewing. Subscribing as well is a big help for me. Of course, you can also use social media to connect with me and also to spread the word amongst your friends about the things that you've learned here on the show. Also, if there's a subject that you want to learn about, I've got a list as long as my arm, but if there's something you've heard about Finland that you want me to go and explore and discover on your behalf, I'd be happy to hear from you on social media or through the website. So until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll see you again on the Explore Finland radio show. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.